A man who went by the name Ricky Hampton, better known to the streets as Finesse2tymes, sat in front of his phone on May 3, 2026 and typed his own record contract into ChatGPT, and what came back destroyed him. No sugarcoating, no lawyer spin, just the raw, unfiltered truth about what he had signed his name to back in April of 2022, a document that, according to the AI breakdown, gave Mob Ties and Atlantic Records ownership of his masters forever, final say over his music decisions, the right to recoup every dollar spent on him in jewelry, private jets, and luxury accommodations before he sees a single penny, and an assignment clause that lets the label transfer his contract to any other label at any time without his consent. No cap. This man used ChatGPT and found out he had been finessed on a level that most rappers don't survive. He said it himself live on Instagram, "Y'all got me good," and then he begged for help. Not from his label, not from his management. He posted to the internet and asked if anybody could help buy him out of his situation before he, quote, crash out and do something that get me a life sentence. That's where we are right now in 2026. Finesse2tymes, the Memphis rapper with gold plaques on his wall, the man whose record Back End went viral on TikTok and pulled over 70 million views on YouTube, the same man who was fresh out of federal prison in July 2022 and turned his career into a rocket ship in under 6 months and is sitting on the outside of a deal worth an estimated $13 million in future value, unable to touch it, unable to leave it, locked in. And the man who holds the key is J. Prince Jr., son of the most feared executive in the history of Southern hip-hop, who founded a label called Mob Ties and used his father's legendary name, power, and connections to sign Finesse to a 360 deal that literally covers every revenue stream the Memphis rapper will ever generate. Music, tours, merch, name, likeness, all of it, gone, signed away. And here's the part that makes this story absolutely insane. J. Prince Sr., the old man himself, the godfather of Houston rap, the man who built Rap-A-Lot Records from a used car lot in Fifth Ward into one of the most powerful independent labels in hip-hop history. He's the one who told Finesse, "Don't get a lawyer." Let that sink in. The man whose entire legacy is built on outsmarting major label executives, protecting his artist's interests, and knowing the business better than anyone in the room, told a newly released felon rapper who was blowing up fast that he didn't need a lawyer to look over the contract. And Finesse moved on loyalty. He thought it was an honor. He thought signing to the Prince family was a blessing. 4 years later, he's on Instagram crying, releasing a guerrilla project called Labels to a YouTube playlist because he's so desperate to put out music that he's bypassing his own label entirely. And even that might get him sued. This is the story of how J. Prince Jr. finessed Finesse 2 times out of $13 million. And we're going to break it all the way down from the very beginning. Stay locked in because every single section of this story gets wilder than the last. Before we can explain how this deal went sideways, you have to understand what Finesse2tymes represented the moment he got out of prison in July 2022. Because this wasn't just some mid-level rapper that a label took advantage of. This was a moment, a genuine cultural wave, and somebody saw that wave coming before Finesse even knew how big it was going to be. Ricky Hampton, born June 10, 1992, grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, one of the cities in America where the streets and the music are so tightly connected that it's almost impossible to separate them. Memphis rap has always had its own identity: raw, heavy, personal. The kind of music that comes from a place where survival is the first language everybody learns. Finesse had been putting in work for years. His YouTube channel launched in November 2018. He dropped his first song, Back Though, in March 2019. He was grinding. But the streets caught up to him before the music could fully take off. In 2017, he was performing at the Power Ultra Lounge nightclub in Little Rock, Arkansas, when shots were fired. The next day, the U.S. Marshals picked him up in Birmingham, Alabama. Federal prosecutors hit him with charges connected to a June 25, 2017 incident where they alleged he fired an AK-style pistol at someone outside a nightclub in Forest City, Arkansas after a verbal altercation. He pled guilty to 1 count of being a felon in possession of a firearm. In December 2018, a judge sentenced him to 5 years in federal prison. He walked out on July 1, 2022, and within 3 months, the man had a record deal with 3 labels simultaneously. Think about that timeline. Released from federal custody July 1st. By September 2022, he had reconnected with Moneybagg Yo, a fellow Memphis rapper he had known for over a decade, and signed to Moneybag's Bread Gang Entertainment. By October 2022, he had added J. Prince Jr.'s mob ties to the picture. And through mob ties, he got a distribution deal with Atlantic Records. 3 labels. 4 months out of prison. The energy behind Finesse at that moment was undeniable. His song Gucci Flow with Gucci Mane dropped and started getting traction. Then, Back End went nuclear. That record hit the Billboard Hot 100. It spread across TikTok, 70 million YouTube views. The industry was watching it, but here's what really went down. Somebody saw that wave coming and made sure they were standing on top of it before Finesse knew what was happening. Let's rewind to 1987, Houston, Texas, 5th Ward. A man named James Prince, who everyone in the South would come to know as J. Prince, is standing in a rundown 2-story building that used to be a used car dealership. He doesn't have much money, but he has vision, a work ethic built from the streets, and an understanding of power that most people in the music business won't develop for decades. He co-founds Rap-A-Lot Records with a computer science major from Seattle named Cliff Blodgett. The initial goal isn't even to make money from music. It's to keep his younger brother Thelton, known on the streets as Sir Rap-A-Lot, away from the life that was pulling at all the young men in 5th Ward. That simple act of brotherly protection turned into one of the most powerful record labels in the history of American music. J. Prince assembled the Ghetto Boys. He found Scarface in the parking lot of a club he owned, playing demos to a DJ. He recruited Willie D through the recommendation of his barber. What came next was history. The Ghetto Boys put Southern rap on the map before anybody in New York or Los Angeles was ready to take the South seriously. Prince moved the label to New York in 1988, got in rooms with Def Jam executives Lyer Cohen and Russell Simmons, and literally watched them show him checks for LL Cool J and Houdini to illustrate how much money was in the music industry. 6-figure checks. And rather than being intimidated, Prince took that knowledge back to Houston and built an empire that would eventually inspire Birdman at Cash Money Records and Master P at No Limit Records. He's not just a label executive. J. Prince Sr. is one of the architects of the entire Southern hip-hop industry. The federal government investigated Rap-A-Lot in 1989. They found nothing. The DEA put probes on Prince in the 1990s, convinced the label was a front. The agents were later convicted of corrupt conduct. This is the family that J. Prince Jr. was born into. Now fast forward to 2017. Junior is coming of age and wants to build his own lane in music. He founds Mob Ties Records. He has his father's name. He has his father's network. He has access to every room in the industry that matters. At 19 years old, his older brother Jazz Prince had already discovered Drake on MySpace, linked him with Lil Wayne, and helped launch the biggest career in modern music. This is not a family that makes amateur moves. In 2022, Mob Ties signs a distribution deal with Atlantic Records and Moneybagg Yo's Bread Gang Entertainment. That's a major play. Atlantic is one of the largest labels in the world. Moneybagg Yo is at the height of his commercial power and represents the Memphis sound that Finesse2tymes grew up in. The infrastructure is in place, and then Finesse2tymes walks out of federal prison on July 1st, 2022, with nothing but talent, hunger, and a deep-seated need to prove that the 5 years he lost didn't break him. That combination, a desperate, talented artist with no legal representation and a label infrastructure looking to sign the next wave, is where this story starts getting crazy. By September 2022, Finesse and Moneybagg Yo had settled a years-long feud. These were two men who had history going back to 2012 when they were both part of a Memphis rap collective called Memphis Greatest Underrated. They had a falling out somewhere along the way. But by September 2022, they were good again. Moneybagg Yo signed Finesse to Bread Gang Entertainment, and they even released a collaboration called Black Visa together. That was the first domino. But here's where it gets crazy. The same month Finesse signed to Bread Gang, the calls were already coming in from another direction. Because J. Prince Jr. was watching, he saw the energy around this Memphis rapper. He saw the streaming numbers climbing. He saw what Back End was doing on TikTok before most people understood how big that record was going to get. In October 2022, Finesse2tymes signed to J. Prince Jr.'s Mob Ties Records. Now from the outside, this looked like a blessing, a triple label deal. Atlantic, Bread Gang, and Mob Ties is the kind of arrangement that most independent rappers dream about. Atlantic provides distribution muscle. Moneybagg Yo's Bread Gang provides cultural credibility in the Memphis lane, and Mob Ties provides the Prince family's legendary industry muscle and street credibility. But Finesse wasn't looking at it from a legal perspective. He was looking at it from an emotional and cultural perspective. He said it himself later. He moved off loyalty. He thought it was an honor to have J. Prince Sr. involved as his manager. Having the original godfather of Southern hip-hop vouching for you, endorsing you, guiding your career, that felt like a crown. It felt like a sign from God that his comeback was real. J. Prince Sr. told him he didn't need a lawyer. About the deal, the revenue split broke down like this. Finesse would receive 35% of music revenue. Mob Ties would receive 35%. And J. Prince Sr., as manager, would receive 30%. Let that math hit you for a second. Finesse2tymes, the artist, the talent, the person whose voice and name and face drive every dollar generated, gets 35 cents out of every dollar. The label and the manager combined take 65 cents before recoupment, before expenses get deducted, before the cost of the private jets and the jewelry and the luxury hotel rooms that were provided to Finesse as part of his deal get clawed back. And remember, this is a 360 deal. That means Mob Ties isn't just taking from his music revenue. They have contractual rights to his touring income, his merchandise revenue, his endorsement deals, his brand partnerships, his name, his likeness. If Finesse2tymes gets paid to appear somewhere, Mob Ties gets a cut. If he drops merch, Mob Ties gets a cut. If he builds his own clothing line, Mob Ties gets a cut. He doesn't own his masters. According to the ChatGPT analysis of the actual contract, the label owns his masters forever. The contract also includes automatic extension clauses, meaning the deal can extend itself without requiring Finesse's explicit approval. And it includes an assignment clause that allows Mob Ties to transfer his contract to another label at any time without needing his consent. He signed away everything, and he did it without a lawyer at the table. By December 2022, Finesse2tymes dropped his debut commercial mixtape 90 Days under the Mob Ties/Atlantic/Bread Gang structure. The project featured Lil Baby, Moneybagg Yo, and Gucci Mane, three of the most commercially relevant names in rap at that moment. The tape had real momentum behind it. Things should have been perfect, but here's where it gets real. An artist can have all the cultural momentum in the world and still see almost none of the financial return if the contract they signed is structured to extract maximum value from the label's side and minimum return to the artist's side, and that's exactly what was happening. Fast forward to January 2026, almost 4 years after signing that contract in April 2022. Finesse2tymes jumps on Instagram and makes it plain. He's not whispering in private. He's not sending quiet messages to management. He's on social media, in front of his entire fan base, saying that Mob Ties is the worst deal he ever signed and that he wants out. Junior, I want out my contract too, he says directly. I don't want to be Mob Ties no more. I want my own society. Let me go, Junior. He's not done. He compares his situation to slavery on camera. I should have just went to Atlantic by myself, he says. Why is it motherfuckers that ain't got no hits, ain't accomplished nothing? How the FK are they getting in these rooms I ain't getting in? I got gold plaques and see, all this talent is just going to waste. At this point, this is slavery. Let me out, let me go. I don't want to do the album no more. That's a man who is completely done, not frustrated, not venting, done. The situation hit a new level by March 2026 when J. Prince Jr. responded, not by addressing the contract dispute, not by offering solutions, but by trolling Finesse on Instagram over his physical appearance. Jr. posted and implied Finesse had gotten liposuction and cosmetic surgery, captioning it, "Not a NA that got lipo. His titties done and a tummy tuck talking about some hair. I think you need to go back, that bad BH energy ain't work." Finesse came back in the comments composed. "The difference between me and you is, I accept who I am, you don't." The street-level back and forth between an artist begging to be free and a label head trolling him on social media was playing out in front of millions of people. The music industry drama had become entertainment, but underneath it there was a man genuinely in crisis about his career and his financial future. Then came May 3rd, 2026, the moment that changed everything. Finesse went on Instagram with his girlfriend and filmed himself putting his actual Mob Ties contract into ChatGPT, live, in real time. He said he had finally found the physical contract. He had gotten a lawyer to look at it, but even the lawyers who reviewed it were hesitant to take the case on fully because of who the other party was. Multiple lawyers had reached out, he said, but the energy around actually fighting the Prince family in court was making it difficult to find proper representation, and so he turned to AI. And what ChatGPT came back with confirmed every fear he'd had. 360 deal. Confirmed. The label has rights to his name and likeness and profits from anything involving him across all revenue streams. Masters. Gone. The label owns them forever. He has no ownership stake in the recordings his own voice appears on. Recoupment. The advances, the jewelry, the private jet flights, the luxury hotel rooms, all of it had been logged as expenses against his account. Every dollar of that has to be paid back before the label owns them forever. He has no ownership stake in the recordings his own voice appears on. Recoupment. The advances, the jewelry, the private jet flights, the luxury hotel rooms, all of it had been logged as expenses against his account. Every dollar of that has to be paid back before Finesse sees any real money from his music career, and those recoupable expenses can and will be used as leverage against him in any renegotiation attempt. Assignment clause. Mob Ties can transfer his contract to any other label at any time without his permission. He could wake up tomorrow and find out his contract has been sold to a label he's never met. Automatic extensions. The contract can extend itself without requiring his signature or his approval. He could theoretically be locked into this deal for the rest of his viable commercial career. According to the ChatGPT breakdown, any attempt by Finesse to walk away from the deal could trigger legal action against him or further recoupment claims. There is no clean exit. There is no easy out. He is, by every contractual standard, locked in. He put his reaction in writing for the post caption, and every word of it hit like a gut punch. I moved off loyalty. I thought it was an honor to have Jay Prince, the old man, be my manager. Y'all told me I didn't need a lawyer because all they do is fuck over people. Well, it looks like to me y'all worse than lawyers. I'm asking as a man, can somebody please help buy me out this situation before I crash out and do something that get me a life sentence? Because the way I'm going out, it's guaranteed I'm not gonna die in the process. He added, let me out or I'm gonna spend my entire life to bring y'all down. And then, finding out I don't own my masters, I agreed to a partnership. Y'all got me good. Y'all got me good. That's a man who has accepted he was played, not on a street level, not in a beef, on paper, in a boardroom, with pen and ink. The finesse was legal, airtight, and executed by people who had been in the business of making these kinds of deals for decades before Finesse2tymes ever recorded a single bar. Here's what really went down with this contract structure, because a lot of people hear 360 deal and don't fully understand what it means in practice. A 360 deal, also called a multiple rights deal, is a contract structure where the record label doesn't just take a percentage of your recorded music, they take a percentage of everything. Your touring revenue, your merchandise, your endorsement deals, your brand partnerships, your appearances, your licensing deals, your name, your image, your likeness. The logic from the label's side sounds almost reasonable on paper. We're investing in you as an artist, not just as a recording act. We're going to spend money promoting you, building your brand, getting you in rooms and on stages. In exchange, we want to participate in all the revenue that our investment generates across your entire career. The problem is the word all. And the other problem is recoupment. Recoupment is the mechanism by which a label takes back every dollar it has ever spent on you before you see any royalty payments. The recording costs, the marketing budget, the video budget, the advances, the jewelry, the travel, the hotel rooms, the private jets, all of it goes on a tab. Your tab. And until that tab is zeroed out, you don't get paid royalties, even if your records are generating millions of dollars in revenue for the label. This is how artists become commercially successful and financially broke at the same time. This is how you can have gold plaques on your wall and no money in your bank account. The math is set up that way from the beginning. In Finesse's specific situation, the revenue split was already lopsided before recoupment even enters the picture. He's getting 35% of music revenue, and that's before expenses are deducted. The label head gets 35%, Jay Prince Sr. as manager gets 30%. That means the two entities who put pen to paper across from Finesse collectively receive 65% of what his music generates. And remember, this is a 360 deal, so they're also participating in every other revenue stream in his life. The ChatGPT analysis also flagged the assignment clause as one of the most dangerous provisions in the entire agreement. When a label has the right to transfer your contract to another entity without your consent, they can essentially sell you. Your career becomes a tradable asset. Another company, one with different values, different priorities, different relationships, could end up holding your contract and there's nothing you can legally do about it. The automatic extension provisions mean the deal can renew without Finesse actively agreeing to renew it. These kinds of provisions exist in many label contracts, but when combined with a 360 structure, no master ownership and heavy recoupment, they become a trap door. You think the deal is almost over, then it extends, then extends again. The lawyers who've looked at Finesse's situation understand why it's difficult. The Prince name carries weight. Taking on mob ties and Atlantic Records in litigation is expensive, time-consuming, and professionally risky for any entertainment attorney who still wants access to the major label ecosystem. This is why Finesse said even lawyers were hesitant to fully commit to fighting this. He released a project called Fuck Da Labels as a guerrilla move, just a YouTube playlist of previously unreleased music. No label involvement, no official release. He was so suffocated by the deal that releasing music to a playlist was the only way he could breathe creatively, and even that move could potentially expose him to breach of contract claims. This man can't win inside the deal, and he can't easily leave the deal. That is the trap. To understand why Finesse signed this deal without more resistance, you have to understand the weight of the Prince name in hip-hop. J. Prince Sr. is not just a music executive. He's a figure whose reputation crosses the line between the music industry and the streets in a way that almost no other executive in hip-hop history has achieved. His reach is so respected and so feared that when he speaks, things move. Not because of physical intimidation alone, because of a track record built over 4 decades of being right, being powerful, and being connected at every level of the game. He built Rap-A-Lot Records from a used car lot in Houston's 5th Ward starting in 1986. At a time when the music industry was completely controlled by New York and Los Angeles, J. Prince went to New York, studied Def Jam Records, watched how Lyor Cohen and Russell Simmons operated, saw the real checks being written for LL Cool J and Run DMC, and brought that knowledge back to Texas. He assembled the Ghetto Boys. He found Scarface. He was the first person to build a major Southern rap empire from the ground up, and he did it independently, on his own terms, without surrendering the kind of equity that destroyed lesser executives. He inspired an entire generation of Southern label executives. Birdman at Cash Money, Master P at No Limit. Both of them have publicly credited J. Prince Sr. with showing them how to build in the South. The blueprint that those labels used to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in the 2000s started with what J. Prince built in Houston in the late 1980s and 1990s. His son Jazz Prince, a different son from J. Prince Jr., discovered Drake on MySpace as a teenager. He got Drake connected with Lil Wayne, facilitated one of the most important relationships in the history of modern music, and helped launch the biggest commercial career in rap history. The Prince family fingerprints are on Drake's entire origin story. J. Prince Sr. managed Floyd Mayweather before they had a falling out in 2003. He manages boxers at the top level of the sport through the Prince Boxing Complex in 5th Ward. His charity work, his political connections, his street relationships, this man operates on a level that most people in the music industry will never access. When J. Prince Sr. tells an artist they don't need a lawyer, it doesn't sound like manipulation. It sounds like wisdom coming from the most connected man in Southern hip-hop. It sounds like the Godfather looking out for you, because that's the reputation he spent 40 years building. And that reputation is exactly what made it so effective when it was deployed against Finesse 2 times in 2022. Finesse was 4 months out of federal prison. He was hungry. He was buzzing. He was getting attention from everywhere. And then J. Prince Sr. himself, the legend, the Godfather, the man who inspired Cash Money and No Limit, offered to be his manager personally. That's not an opportunity that comes with skepticism. That comes with gratitude. J. Prince Jr. had been building mob ties since 2017. He had the Atlantic distribution deal locked in. He had the Bread Gang partnership with Moneybagg Yo in place. He had a real label infrastructure. He wasn't just trading on his father's name. He had built something real. But the name still opened every door, provided every access point, and created the level of trust that allowed a 360 deal to be signed without independent legal representation reviewing it first. That's the move. Not loud, not threatening, just trust. The most valuable currency in the music industry, deployed with surgical precision. Let's talk about what $13 million in value actually looks like in this situation, because the number needs context. Finesse 2 times came home from federal prison in July 2022 with a following he'd built online through years of grinding. His TikTok presence, his YouTube views, his Instagram engagement, all of it suggested that when the right record dropped, the ceiling was high. Back End proved the ceiling. That record entered the Billboard Hot 100, It pulled over 70 million views on YouTube. It spread virally on TikTok. In the streaming economy of 2022, a record with those numbers translates into real money, but only for the people who own the rights to it. The 90 Days mixtape featured Lil Baby, Moneybagg Yo, and Gucci Mane. In terms of commercial credibility and feature placement, that's a top-tier debut. Lil Baby alone was one of the most streamed artists on the planet at that time. Having him on your debut tape is not a small thing. That kind of exposure drives streaming numbers, playlist placements, and long-tail revenue that compounds over years. His 2024 debut studio album, Art of War, didn't chart the way the label hoped, but his streaming catalog was still generating consistent revenue. He was performing live, building a touring base, developing merchandise, and expanding his brand footprint across social media. Every one of those revenue streams, streaming royalties, touring revenue, merch revenue, appearance fees, sync licensing, endorsements, flows through the 360 deal structure. Every dollar Finesse generates in any of those categories has mob ties and the Prince family taking their combined 65% share before recoupment. When industry observers estimate that this deal traps approximately $13 million in value over its lifetime, including the projected future earnings from Finesse's career across all those revenue streams, that number is not abstract. That's Finesse's career earnings being systematically redirected by a contract he signed without independent legal counsel in October 2022, 4 months after getting out of prison. At the height of his early buzz, when he was most vulnerable to the feeling that every opportunity had to be grabbed immediately before the wave passed. He mentioned that he's made $400,000 on a subscription-based platform. That's real money, but against the backdrop of what his music career should be generating, given the streaming numbers, the chart placements, the cultural impact, it's a fraction of what a properly structured deal would return to him. "I should have just went to Atlantic by myself," he said, and he's right. If Finesse had gone directly to Atlantic Records and negotiated independently with proper legal representation, he would have kept a significantly larger share of his own revenue. He would own his masters, or at minimum have a path to reversion. He would have control over his release schedule. He would be able to release his own music without risking a breach of contract claim. Instead, he's releasing music to YouTube playlists and calling it "fuck da labels." As of May 2026, this situation is still unfolding. Neither Atlantic Records nor Mob Ties has publicly commented on Finesse's most recent Instagram revelations about the ChatGPT contract breakdown. J. Prince Jr. has responded to Finesse's public complaints, but only in the form of personal attacks and social media trolling, not with any substantive engagement about the contract itself. That silence on the business side is deliberate. You don't respond to contract disputes on Instagram. You let the legal structure speak for itself. For Finesse, the options are limited, but not non-existent. One legal argument that has been floated in online discussions is the possibility of claiming he signed under duress. If he can demonstrate that the conditions under which he signed the contract were coercive, that the power imbalance, the absence of independent counsel, and the specific instructions not to hire a lawyer constituted a form of pressure that made genuine free consent impossible, a court could potentially void or modify the agreement, and that is an extremely difficult case to make. Courts are generally reluctant to undo contracts, especially when the party arguing duress had any opportunity at all to seek outside counsel. The fact that Finesse had a lawyer look at the contract at some point, even if that lawyer was later hesitant to engage fully, complicates the duress argument. There is also the question of unconscionability, the legal doctrine that allows courts to void contracts whose terms are so one-sided that enforcing them would be fundamentally unjust. A 360 deal with no master ownership, an assignment clause, automatic extensions, and heavy recoupment, all signed by a man who was explicitly told not to bring a lawyer, might present a credible unconscionability argument. But again, these cases are expensive, slow, and uncertain. The buyout option, which Finesse publicly asked for help with, would require someone to pay the label enough money to make releasing him financially worthwhile. Given that the contract represents millions in projected future revenue, the buyout price would be significant, and nobody has publicly stepped up with that kind of capital. On the streets and in the culture, the response to Finesse's situation has been largely sympathetic. His fan base is engaged. People are watching. The conversation about 360 deals, artist rights, and the music industry's exploitation of artists who come from vulnerable backgrounds has been reignited by his public disclosures. But sympathy doesn't modify a contract. Viral outrage doesn't dissolve an assignment clause. And Instagram support doesn't pay the legal fees required to fight Atlantic Records and the Prince family in court. The situation also carries personal legal weight for Finesse outside of the contract dispute. He was facing a warrant in Texas for alleged terroristic threats related to a custody dispute involving a child he later found out via DNA test was not his biological son. He faced a lawsuit over a 2023 nightclub shooting in Georgia, where 5 people were injured. His legal situation outside of the mob ties dispute was already complicated. A man under that kind of cumulative pressure, legal threats from multiple directions, a contract dispute with one of the most powerful families in hip-hop, public humiliation from the label CEO, and financial strain from a deal that's capturing most of his earnings, is exactly the kind of pressure that leads to desperate decisions. His Instagram posts reflected that desperation. The reference to potentially doing something that gets him a life sentence suggests a man who is genuinely feeling cornered. This situation is bigger than Finesse2tymes versus J. Prince Jr. This is a story about a system that has been in place since the music industry figured out how to monetize black artists' creativity. The 360 deal didn't start with mob ties. It's been a standard weapon in the major label arsenal for decades. Labels pioneered these deals as a response to declining album sales in the digital era. As physical music revenue collapsed, labels needed new ways to sustain their revenue models. Attaching themselves to all revenue streams of an artist's career was the corporate solution to a business problem. The artists just happened to be the ones who paid the price. What makes the Finesse situation unique and uniquely painful is the role that the Prince name played. J. Prince Sr. built Rap-A-Lot Records on the principle of protecting his artists from the predatory practices of major labels. He went to New York in 1988 and studied how those label executives operated, specifically so he could circumvent them and build something that gave Southern artists a fair shake. That origin story is a genuine part of hip-hop history. But the tools he learned, the business structure, the contract mechanics, the understanding of how to capture maximum revenue from talent, those same tools in the hands of a new generation can cut in either direction. J. Prince Jr. took his father's understanding of the music business and used it to build mob ties. He secured an Atlantic distribution deal. He brought in Moneybagg Yo's Bread Gang for Memphis credibility. He signed Finesse2tymes at the exact right moment, when the artist was buzzing, vulnerable, grateful, and unrepresented, and he structured a deal that will extract maximum value from Finesse's career for the foreseeable future. That's not a mistake or an oversight. That's a play, a calculated, deliberate, legally airtight play, the same kind of play that J. Prince Sr. himself learned by studying the executives at Def Jam. The legacy of Rap-A-Lot is real and important. The Ghetto Boys changed hip-hop. Scarface is one of the greatest rappers of all time. Bun B and Pimp C defined an entire era of Southern music. J. Prince Sr. deserves every piece of his legendary status. But legacies are complicated, and the tools of power, when passed down, don't always maintain the original intent. For Finesse2tymes, the lesson is one that has been learned by artists across every genre for as long as the music industry has existed. The contract is the real record deal. Everything you see on the surface, the advances, the private jets, the jewelry, the features with Lil Baby and Gucci Mane, the billboard placements, the viral TikTok moments, all of it is built on a foundation of paperwork. And if you don't read and understand that paperwork, if you let someone you trust tell you that you don't need an independent lawyer, then none of those surface-level wins belong to you in any meaningful financial sense. The artists who maintain generational wealth in this industry are the ones who own their masters. Jay-Z has spent the last 2 decades buying back his catalog and building ownership into every deal he touches. Drake negotiated terms with Young Money and Cash Money that gave him more control than a standard deal would allow. Taylor Swift's public fight to own her masters reshaped how the entire industry talks about artist rights. Finesse2tymes is not in a position to negotiate from that kind of strength right now. He came out of federal prison with momentum but no leverage. He had buzz but no business infrastructure. And the people who offered to be his infrastructure extracted a price that he didn't fully understand until he ran his own contract through an AI chatbot 4 years later. Y'all got me good. That line is going to follow this story for a long time because it says everything. It says, I trusted you. It says, I didn't read the fine print. It says, I understand now what I signed, and it's too late to undo it easily. And it says, I'm still here. I'm not done. I'm fighting. Today, Finesse is putting music on YouTube playlists and calling them projects because releasing music independently is the only creative freedom he has left. He's publicly asking for someone to buy him out of his deal. He's threatening to spend the rest of his life fighting the label if they don't let him go. He's comparing the situation to slavery on camera. J. Prince Jr. is trolling him on Instagram and has not publicly engaged with the substance of the contract dispute. Mob Ties and Atlantic Records have maintained silence in response to every public disclosure Finesse has made. The deal holds. The contract is the contract, and right now, that contract has Ricky Hampton, Finessed 2tymes, locked into a structure worth an estimated $13 million that he will never see most of for music that will always belong to someone else, with a name and likeness that a label he wants to leave can use commercially for as long as the deal runs. This is how the finesser got finessed. Not on the block, not in a fight, in a boardroom with a pen, on paper, by people who know that in the music industry, the most powerful weapon isn't a gun or a reputation, it's a contract. And Finessed 2tymes signed one without a lawyer in the room. Let me break it down for you one final time before we wrap up. J. Prince Jr. founded Mob Ties in 2017. He built a real label infrastructure. He secured Atlantic distribution. He partnered with Moneybagg Yo's Bread Gang. When Finessed 2tymes came home from federal prison in July 2022, buzzing harder than almost anyone coming out of Memphis in years, Prince Jr. saw the opportunity. By October 2022, Finesse had signed a 360 deal structured so that he gets 35% of his music revenue, the label gets 35%, and J. Prince Sr. as manager takes 30%. The label owns his masters forever. The deal has automatic extension clauses and an assignment clause. Every advance, every luxury perk, every piece of jewelry, and every private jet flight is recoupable, logged against Finesse's tab before he sees a single royalty payment. J. Prince Sr. told Finesse he didn't need a lawyer. Finesse trusted him and moved on loyalty. By January 2026, Finesse was on social media calling it the worst deal he ever signed and comparing it to slavery. By March 2026, J. Prince Jr. was trolling him on Instagram about his physical appearance instead of engaging with the contract dispute. By May 3, 2026, Finesse was running his own contract through ChatGPT Live on Instagram, watching the AI confirm everything he feared and posting to his followers. "Y'all got me good." He's been fighting publicly for months. The deal hasn't moved. The lawyers are hesitant. The label is silent. And Finesse is stuck. That's the story of how J. Prince Jr. finessed Finesse 2tymes out of $13 million. No cap. If you're an artist watching this, get a lawyer. Always get a lawyer. Get two. No matter how much you respect the person across the table, no matter how much of an honor it feels like, no matter how good the deal sounds when it's being explained to you out loud, put the contract in front of someone who has no relationship with the label, no interest in the outcome except to protect yours, and let them read every word. Because the music industry has been making these moves since before any of us were born. And the only defense against a legally airtight trap is knowing what you're signing before you sign it. Finessed 2tymes knew how to finesse, but in October 2022, the finesse game was played on him by people who had been running it for decades. And until someone comes up with the buyout money, or a judge decides the contract was unconscionable, or Mob Ties decides to let him walk, he's locked in, for real.